Welcome to another episode of the Tiny House Master Plan. In this episode, we get to have an interview with Ryan of WallFX. We're going to cover with you what is metal framing, why do it, all the benefits, and how, step by step, how this thing got popped up in record timing. And by record timing, I mean we did it in 90 seconds in a music video last week. Go and check it in the link to the description down below. All right, let's go and jump into this interview. Ryan.
Good afternoon.
This has been an amazing journey. It looks phenomenal. So first off, I gotta say thank you. Thank you to you, the team of WallFX, and your craftsmanship. There's a lot that goes into metal framing, and in this video today, I want the audience to understand what is metal framing, why do metal framing, and how to do metal framing.
Absolutely.
So before we jump in, tell me a little bit about WallFX. So we got a little bit of grounding on who WallFX is.
Well, WallFX, we're based out of the Edmonton area. We've been in business since 2006. We do commercial, residential, and industrial steel stud framing, drywall, taping, painting, texturing, and spray foam installation. We do renovations, new build. This is our first tiny house we've ever built, but we're very excited and very happy with the way this turned out.
I think there's also a story here. This has actually been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has. We've been working on this since last year at some point, I think, when we made our first contact.
I think so. We had an email, I think, back in I think October.
Absolutely, that sounds right.
It was about October, we reached out, you kindly took the email, got back and said, this is interesting, let's have a meeting. And then since then, man, it's been a lot of steps of design and thinking about, little details on the house.
Absolutely, making the design of the building work with the design of the steel stud. It's a very usable system, and it is easy to manipulate to make it work, to give yourself your angles, your corners, your edges, your step-ups, your drop-downs. It's a very great product.
I think a lot of people may not even understand metal framing very well. So let's back up a second, and let's try to educate the audience on what is metal framing and why.
So metal framing has been around for a long time, mostly in the commercial and industrial business due to its fire rating capabilities. Unlike wood studs, it does not rot and it will not burn. So it's a great product to be used in a non-combustible building material. It's also very lightweight, which helps in this situation where we're trying to keep the weight down for the poor truck that has to tow this.
Let's review those. I've heard a few right there. So I love lists.
Yeah.
We got lightweight.
Yes, sir.
So this is a 20 gauge metal. Do you know how much roughly that weighs per foot's length of that?
With this being a special order 2.5-inch stud, I don't know if they have much specs on it because we had to come up with a stud ourselves just to give you that extra 2 inches on the inside here.
Yes.
Typically you're under £1 a foot though.
Yeah. So there's lots of types of metal studs out there. Can you explain what it means to have a certain gauge type metal?
Absolutely. So the steel studs do come in different dimensions, kind of like your lumber will come in 2x2, 2x4, 2x6. Steel studs will come in 1 5/8, 2.5, 3 5/8, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, or anything specialty. They're also measured by their gauge of the stud and the size of the flange. The heavier the gauge of stud, the more it's willing to be used for an outside or a load-bearing application, as these ones are. Also, the wide flange on the stud allows it to be a wind load capability, allows it to take the wind load of any moving or stationary building.
Do you want to explain what does it mean when you have a certain gauge and what that number means?
So there are many different gauges of steel, and the higher the gauge, the lighter the steel. 25 gauge is the lightest steel we work with. That's used for interior partitions, and it doesn't have a whole lot of strength to it.
But then when you start getting up to, so your typical, these are special, these are wind
Yes,
rated,
these are wind load studs. Typically, they're 20 gauge minimum, up to 14 gauge is the thickest you can go. Obviously, the price goes up, and the harder they are to cut. The 25 gauge stud you can cut with a pair of tin snips. 20 gauge, you're more likely to use a chop saw, and 18 gauge, you definitely need the chop saw to cut any of that, like all of our bracing in here, as you have seen as some of the guys have been working.
Yeah, we definitely were using the chop saw at this project, weren't we?
Absolutely. It's a loud, noisy product, but it does a great job cutting the steel down to manageable lengths.
And you know what? I actually think I have some samples. This is a great time to showcase them.
Absolutely.
Blaine was explaining this to me, that there's different colors when you buy your metal. So we've got your green here, and this is...
that would be 16 gauge.
So that's a 16.
So 16 gauge. This is a carrying channel that goes inside through here, and this will clip into the stud. So this has to be a higher gauge than your wall typically.
Yeah.
So your 18 gauge wall will have 16 gauge channel.
Yeah.
As I said, the wind load studs do have the larger flange here to allow for the wind load, and then they have a larger turn here to give them more strength and capability to hold weight.
Definitely.
The first part of the system that gets installed is the track, which will be shot onto the floor in the ceiling, and then the studs actually sit inside the track system. Unlike a typical 2x4 system where they stack up on top of each other, this allows you to be direct fastened and allows you to insulate directly side to side, giving you a better thermal value as well.
Awesome. All right, so let's back up a second. Okay, I want to keep these on hand because we're going to talk more about them in a second. But we're talking the benefits of metal framing, and one of them is that they're lighter. And I've heard different stats, but it depends obviously on the gauge of metal that you choose.
Absolutely.
If you choose a heavier gauge, you're not gonna, it's gonna be heavier.
Absolutely.
So,
but in comparison to wood with a heavier gauge stud, you're replacing a 4x4 or a 6x6 as opposed to a 2x4 or a 2x6. So the heavier steel are replacing the heavier wood beams that are required to hold up the weight.
Yeah. So for a tiny house specifically, you're saving on weight, which is huge. Another big thing that's a benefit for it is that it doesn't rot.
The product has a zinc coating which allows it to not rust.
So now we've got lighter. We've got it doesn't rot. It doesn't burn, which is, again, huge for, again, fire rating and safety and just making sure your house lasts. And it won't be bug food.
And bugs don't like it. Termites don't like the taste of steel at all.
So there's lots of benefits that go into using metal. One other one that I can say, because I built my house out of wood, is that metal is fabricated extremely straight.
It is machine pressed to within 1/1000th of an inch on every stud that's made. So unlike the natural 2x4, which could bow and crown up to 3/8 or half an inch on an 8-foot span, these walls are as straight as they can get, absolutely. So it'll help with your panel finish as well, with the zip panels being a strong, rigid panel that secures on. You won't have any back and forth. You'll have a nice flat panel.
Yeah.
Access, absolutely.
One thing that I love, too, is being real with people. Everything has pros and cons.
Absolutely.
So let's talk for a second about some of the considerations you have to take into mind when you're using metal studs. And one of them that I'm very aware of, and I'm thinking of the efficiency of a house, is that you have this thermal conductivity. Your metal can transfer the cold.
Yes.
And so if you don't understand that, you may forget to put an additional step of construction on the outside of the house so the cold can't touch the metal. And again, we're having samples here. This is a good opportunity to mention the sheathing the product that we're using. These are zip panels by Huber Engineered Woods. And so they have a sheathing product, they have a house wrap product, and they also have an exterior insulation. So this goes on the outside of the stud, like so. And now the cold can't pass through this foam to touch the metal. So it's good for people to understand that is, metal has all sorts of perks, and you have to be aware that its relationship with temperature is different than wood.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have said that better myself.
Okay, so that's one. The other one is that I think it's fabricated extremely straight, and therefore it makes your life easier if you make a mistake.
It's very adjustable. Everything is screwed and tech bolted together. Anything that has to be moved can be moved.
Yeah.
If a door has to change, if a window has to change, if a wall has to be replaced, everything is screwed together. It's a very user-friendly system with a journeyman interior system mechanic. It becomes very simple to...
And that's actually where I was going to go with this. I was going to say, okay, so there is changes you can make. And if you're a professional, you're very likely to make those mistakes in the first place and know how to correct them.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, in wood framing, it's forgiving because you can chop into it and make a change and rebrace or whatever. With metal, cutting metal out of your wall to make an adjustment later down the road, it's not easy, but you shouldn't have to do it if you planned it right in the first place.
Cordless grinders are out there. They do work. Yeah. It's a little awkward getting up in some of the areas trying to cut.
Yeah.
That's why you plan first and build second, obviously.
Plan first, use the pros, do your research, make sure you do it right the first time.
One negative with the steel stud system is the cost of the tools. The shotguns, the lasers, the tech bolting, anything that has to be done, the Hilti products that are used to fasten metal to metal are more expensive, but they're easily rentable from your local Home Depot or Rona as well. So they're not something you have to go and buy.
And I've done my fair share of trolling on YouTube, and I constantly see these videos of people framing tiny homes with metal, and they're using the flimsy metal, and they're like, this is so easy, I can just cut this with my snips. And I cringe a little bit because I'm going, I don't know if that's strong enough.
You know, I've seen stranger things done, but we do have a very good engineer we've been using on this project, and we've been going back and forth with them, and
that's why we went.
That's why we went with a 2.5, and these are all 18 gauge studs, not 20 actually. My apologies. These are 18 gauge studs that we use for the walls and the ceilings.
So yellow is 18, and we actually passed that earlier.
Yeah,
right?
Green is 16, red is 14, white is 20.
And there we go.
Yeah.
Coating system. So again, 16 gauge, and let's go over some terminology of the parts here, and then we'll actually get into the steps now of construction. So we've got 16 gauge.
This is called carrying channel. So this is channel that carries the load from stud to stud and allows it to carry and transfer the weight and the movement of the building to allow it to be more rigid.
Connects all your walls together. And then we've got our 18 gauge studs. And
Yes.
these sit within our also
18
gauge track. Okay. So we've covered the bits and pieces now, right? Let's see if I can impress you.
Absolutely.
With my knowledge of the process of how we built this house. What's awesome is I'm going to cut to the filming bits that we did because we filmed this house galore. So we're going to actually, over this interview, cut over and insert each of these steps as I'm saying them. So the first step I noticed when you guys got on site, and it was so good to have professionals, is that you took the job professionally. You did a safety assessment. You looked around the site. Everyone signed their forms. It was like set up, ready to go. Step one. Step two was to laser level the trailer frame.
Yes.
And start doing our prep. You guys brought in all your metal to the side. You set up your tools. Step three was to shoot down all the track.
Yes.
So again, this stuff accepts the wall into it.
Yes.
So it's basically establishing your floor plan.
Yes, that's 100% what we're doing. One thing I do recommend that we did as well is a Tremco Acoustic Seal product. This is a never hardening caulking that we put in between the track and the wall, and just allows for any movement, and it doesn't allow water, air, or moisture to get in between. Just an extra fail-safe.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so our track is now all set down, and before we carry on, we should actually mention that you guys actually fastened it 2 different ways.
Yes.
So tell me about those, because that's technical.
So we've got the Hilti BX3 fastener, which shoots direct steel fasteners, metal to metal. They used to be a powder actuated tool that used gunpowder. Now they are battery powered.
So badass.
They've increased their ability, and now we're able to do it with a battery. The problem with those is they do not screw in, they shoot in, so they're a great fastener. But with this trailer moving around, we decided to add some extra tech bolts in just as a precaution Blaine and I took as we worried as we built it.
And I love that you guys came to me and told me more about that, saying, you know what? I think if for just peace of mind, we recommend you do additional still yet. I mean, we're happy with this, but you know what? Why over-engineer? Why not?
Absolutely.
And so I went out, I asked metal supermarkets, hey, you guys got some material for this project? And they actually gave us a sponsorship, was getting some bits of metal from them.
Perfect.
We got some flat stock, 3/16, drilled the holes through it, got some bolts from Bolt Supply House. And now this sits through the trailer and sits inside this track. So it actually holds the whole wall assembly to the trailer frame now on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20 spots.
Wow. That'll help for any uplift or any vertical movement or driving on the roads, especially as it's just traveling across Canada and it's not just going to one location. This is going to be the busiest tiny house in North America in 2021.
That's right. Very active. Okay, so where were we? We have our track. We set our track down. We've used the tech bolts, you said?
Yes.
And we've also used the
Hilti shotgun.
Hilti shotgun. And that was really cool. That is a loud machine. Holy smokes.
It is, yes.
So now that thing is all the way set. The next step of construction was to have Blaine actually set the corners of the house. Yeah. So there were 6 points, the front 2, the highest peak points, and then the 2 at the far back. And setting those points allowed us then to start setting our top track.
Yes.
And then we were ready to go for measurements.
Absolutely. Layout of the doors and the windows, make sure we have them where we want them so our studs are located properly. The header heights are fine. We allow for whatever backing. We had a discussion with yourself and your window installer on how we were going to install the windows, what kind of backing was required to make the openings the right size for the windows and doors to fit properly.
So set up the windows and doors, and I noticed Blaine actually doing that really early on. Actually, we had the track just laying on the ground. He was coming along, marking out exactly where everything was going to go. So there's like a map. Really?
Absolutely.
A map for everyone else then after to follow.
And then everyone on the team can follow that map and they know what they're building. And you notice I'd come in and put the header in here and there as I knew what it was because we have our marks. We knew what we were building and we had a game plan.
It was actually kind of fun having everyone out too. I know it was almost like a team building exercise.
Well, there was a lot of people. It was definitely a team building exercise for the company because we had most of our crew in here. And it was good to have all hands on deck though, just to show them what we can do and what we want to do and how we're not afraid to do different projects.
A unique project,
Absolutely.
Right? Get them on camera. That was cool getting the shots of everyone as well.
Oh, they were very excited to get on camera. Absolutely.
No, I got to say in that first video, if you haven't watched that first video, by the way, information's down below. And it's a music video on the quick building of the house. Additional shout out to Wade and to Jay for finishing up the project because they are the ones who came in afterwards. And I mean, you guys are so busy. We tried to fit this project in between the 14 projects we're on right now. But no, it turned out great and we're excited and we're very happy to see the final product. different people got to see the project at different points
Absolutely.
and step up to get it done.
And then different people were providing different ideas to all of my different journeyman framers would come in and we'd have conversations. I got calls from Blaine in the middle of the night worrying about how we were going to cantilever this and what we were going to do for the opening.
Yeah, exactly.
And, no, it's nice to get all the different people's output because we do have a great crew of gentlemen that work with us, the ladies and gentlemen, that do great work. And it's nice to get their input on projects, especially with the engineer working hand in hand with us and listening to what we have to say when we're looking to make it easier, cheaper, or better, depending on what we were working on.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so where were we in the steps here? We leveled the trailer frame, we laid down the track, we established our points from either end of the house. We laid out our top track. We then cut all our studs to fit inside those 2 tracks. Then we came back and we did the windows, and that was actually more of a bracing. You're putting these pieces in underneath, putting
top header and bottom header for the window, right?
Top header.
The window has something to screw into at all locations, absolutely.
And then they got to supporting the structure and making it stronger. Oh, and I also should have mentioned doing the roof.
And then the floor we threw in as well.
Yeah. So let's make sure we put those in the right order. So doing the windows and wrapping them up, then going and putting in the roof joists.
Yes.
That requires 2 pieces of track as well.
2 on either side.
Either side to accept those studs. The next step was to do the supporting of the structure.
Yeah.
XBracing and putting in, I always forget the name of
the carrying channel.
Carrying channel. I don't know why the name has a hard time.
Now this actually comes in a thicker model. Usually it's 1.5 inches thick, but because these are 2.5-inch wind load studs, there's no room for 1.5 inch channel, so we had to get this special made as well.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Shout out to Bailey's Metal for helping us out, coming up with the product as well and creating it, putting it in their assembly line. It was very helpful of them, have them help us with that.
You were telling me that it was basically warm when it arrived.
It was first row of steel. Keith picked it up at the shop, and it had literally just come off the press, and it was still hot by the time it got here. It was hot rolled steel for sure.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've kind of given now people an overview of the how we accomplished this. I think there's also a few points to mention, though, in terms of the areas that were a little extra difficult or challenging. And those 2 being the front, which I want to give a shout out to Dustin for framing. This is a very custom framing.
Absolutely.
On the front of the house.
The front and the back were very custom.
Exactly. So shout out to Dustin for doing the framing on the front. So it basically has 2 spots. We can have doors.
And we could have storage inside there and use it to...
Storage inside. And then also we're going to be, it's better for wind resistance.
Absolutely.
That it's angled the way it is. And we're going to put diamond plate actually on the face of the...
Beautiful. I recommend that as well.
So it'll be super tough and look, I think, pretty BA.
It'll help keep it waterproof, especially driving down the highway. Any wind-driven rain will be coming directly through the front. That's where you're going to get it the worst. So I definitely recommend the checker plate across the front.
Awesome. And then another one was the back. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the back and how we addressed the strength of that?
Well, with this one being a custom show home, tiny home, the back trailer is going to be a stage area. So it's not actually a wall as much as it is a floor. So we did have to do a little bit of custom framing, create some box beam headers across the sides, the tops, and the bottoms. Now we just wait for the door to come in and we'll put it into place. But it definitely took some extra weight because of the hinge point on the steel and the fact that it's on an angled bottom. It took a little bit of extra work for our guys, but we figured it out and it looks beautiful.
I think it looks great. I mean, I'm really happy that, Blaine lost a little sleep over the cantilever at the back, and that Way and Jade also kind of pitched in on that in terms of going, here's how we should do this. Let's make a box beam and really brace that back corner because it's a stage up there.
Absolutely.
We got to carry the weight of people on the roof down back to the trailer frame.
Absolutely.
So pretty awesome to have your guys' professional help to make sure that this is as strong as it can be.
No, I'm very confident in the strength of this tiny house.
Well, I got to say, thank you so much. WallFX has really, it's been super exciting to work with you. And also, I've learned a ton myself. But I got to say, I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at how gorgeous it is. I love shooting video in here for starters too. It looks awesome.
It is nice in here. The steel gives it a nice shine and a good look.
So much thanks to WallFX. We really appreciate you guys for making this project possible.
Absolutely. And shout out to you. We thank you for all the help in getting this off the ground and working with us and making this hopefully a successful project when it finishes. But we're very happy to see how this turns out, and we're excited on how this worked.
Well, we'll see you guys still yet another time or two. We got a little bit more to do. We've got a little bit of XBracing to finish up, right? And then the other part that we're going to do is after we get the plywood in, we'll see who actually shows up. Maybe it'll be Blaine, maybe you.
And it might even be me coming in. But once the plywood is on the floor, we can do the interior walls. It's kind of hard to do the interior wall framing now. There's nothing to support it. There's nothing holding it up. You're going to be making your life a lot more difficult. So once you get your plumbing rough in, Once you get your electrical roof in, you get the flooring done and the roof underside, we'll come in and put a couple interior walls as well.
That's going to be awesome.
That will use the light gauge framing because there is no wind load, there is no exterior, so that works perfect for that application.
Yeah, awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Ryan of WallFX, our amazing sponsor who got this amazing framing job done. You guys rock. If you liked this video, be sure to like it and subscribe. That's actually also how you can win the house. 2 steps. You gotta subscribe here on YouTube, and 2, you gotta go to the website and fill out the form so we know who you are, so we can give you the house. So make sure to enjoy the rest of the series as we continue to put out more content showing you how we build this thing and then take it for a tour of a lifetime across Canada, providing COVID-safe entertainment. All right, we'll see you next episode.